welcome to the Think Broad podcast. We are excited to be here at the beautiful Broad and Noble Apartments, one of many new developments right here on North Broad. To learn more, visit us at www.northbroad.org. And don't forget to subscribe and become a part of our growing community of informed stakeholders. And with that, welcome, John Fry, to today's podcast.
Thanks, Shalmar. So great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you here and to have you on North Broad and in North Philadelphia. This season's podcast is all about business attraction and business retention. So we're going to have a discussion around that and the role that Temple University can play. But before we get there, share a little bit about your road to Temple. How did you get here, and how have things been since you've been here?
I took a long road through West Philadelphia.
I think you
to
did.
Get to North Philadelphia, right? Yeah, no, I spent probably almost 22 years of my career in West Philly with a stint in Lancaster in between Penn and then Drexel. And, having been so involved in the eds and meds community in Philadelphia, of course, I naturally got to know friends at Temple, especially Joanne Epps and Dick Englert, who are two especially dear friends of mine, and got to know a little bit about Temple, but from afar.
Yeah.
And then when they reached out to me about this job, I was really sort of interested. I've always admired the institution. I've always thought it had the best mission going of any of the major universities. I also had a huge amount of admiration for its health system, led by a good friend of mine, Mike Young. And so it just seemed like it was a fortuitous time. I had been at Drexel. I had just started my 15th year. And I thought to myself, look, if I have one more job in me, boy, I would like it to be Temple.
Nice.
And that's how I got to this part of the neighborhood.
Nice. Well, I know we had our meeting, and one of the words I used was refreshing. And that's how I feel with having you here. It's refreshing.
Thank you.
So how do you see Temple contributing to the economic revitalization of North Philadelphia?
Well, I mean, so we're anchors on sort of two big parts of North Broad.
Right.
The university is the anchor in terms of its location, and of course, about a mile and a half up, the health system is another anchor. And also, I think that increasingly, because of the work we're doing now in Center City, perhaps even purchasing the Terra building for our new location for Temple University Center City, we're going to be in Center City as well. So when you think about Broad Street, we're thinking that we're one of the most important anchors on Broad, south, in the middle, and further north, which is an incredible opportunity and a privilege for us.
Yeah.
So I think about our anchor role, obviously as major employers. Of course, we spend a lot of money on construction and development. Of course, mostly we produce great talent, and that's brought to us by an incredibly talented faculty who teach our incredible students. So I feel like from an anchor standpoint, economic impact, but especially talent impact.
Yeah.
That's our mission. That's what we do. And we intend to fulfill that anchor role as a fundamental part of our mission.
Yeah. Yeah. It should be noted that I'm a Temple alum, and also the producers of this podcast is a Temple alum as well. So
Temple proud all around.
We are here. What strategies do you have? What strategies do you envision for leveraging Temple's presence to attract new businesses to the area?
So a couple of different things. First, we want to work with North Broad Renaissance to make sure the work that you're doing, which is so central to all of our success in terms of, a clean and safe and vibrant and exciting corridor of activity along North Broad. Place is so important for our institutions, both on the educational side and on the healthcare side. And what you and your team have done here on North Broad is terrific. We want to be part of that because our strategy fits so well into what your strategy is. Yeah. So public environment to me always sort of comes first, because if people feel like they're in an environment where it's safe and there are plenty of things to do, they're going to want to come back for more, and hopefully even end up living here long term. So that is sort of the kind of basis for our participation. And then I look at our role in sort of concentric circles. Obviously, one is the transmission and discovery of knowledge. And so we're in the innovation business. We're creating the possibilities for new businesses through the work that our students and our faculty do in terms of their inventions and their inclination to start things up. We have a thriving entrepreneurial community. The Innovation Nest, which is up by our health system, is a great example of that, and I think is now part of your corridor.
Yeah.
And that's open to everyone. That's not just for Temple people only. So that's exciting. I think of the work that we're going to be doing in local public schools. I had dinner last week with Superintendent Watlington, and we're working on something which I think could be very, very exciting in terms of working with K through 12 institutions in these neighborhoods throughout North Philadelphia, with Temple playing an important sort of educational partner role. I think that there are many opportunities for us to be working with our neighbors on affordable housing, on access to healthcare via the health system, all the things that make neighborhoods strong. Economic activity, available healthcare, access to higher education, and things of that nature, and then even best use of our own sort of real estate. So we just signed Iron Hill to a long-term lease.
Very excited
up by the
about
Leah
that.
Center.
Yeah,
and I think, of course, that fits right into your strategy
it
as well.
absolutely does. Absolutely does.
Yeah, so making sure that we're an important part of the corridor, and then we're doing the things that are very specific to what Temple University and Temple University Health System does in terms of education and healthcare.
And I think that's super important because one of the reasons we created the districts that we have, the health district, the tech district, the arts and culture district, and the business district, is to create this narrative around job equity, right? To be able to provide employment opportunities for both the students at Temple University, because we want the talent to stay here. We don't want them to get educated here and go somewhere else and raise a family. We want them to be able to stay here. Right. And so, but also, how are we providing employment opportunities for those in the community as well? And so how does that mix use kind of business attraction, business retention look like on the corridor? So we all have the privilege of just walking to work to a sustainable business and a sustainable job that can help us raise our families and create community.
And that's what everyone wants. They want access to all those opportunities. And there's just nothing like the serendipity of being able to walk to work and see people in coffee shops and run into them in restaurants and see them in, sort of recreation spaces. It's just what makes these communities so vibrant.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's community. I was just in Coffee Creams a Dream this morning. And you get to know Steph, and you get to know the people that's already always there. People are hugging, people are sitting down, and it's community. And this is the type of community we want to create across North Broad.
Tell me where that is so I can go
Coffee Cream and Dreams is at 15th and Fairmount, right on the corner. It's a black-owned coffee shop. So, excellent. And they always give you nice quotes on your cup to make your day. So, definitely stop there.
Count me in for sure.
As far as building partnerships, as you begin your tenure, how will you work to create new partnerships with local organizations and businesses and government to benefit both Temple and the community? And again, that word refreshing comes up because you start to build a relationship with the North Broad Renaissance before you even officially started at Temple. You created that olive branch and say, hey, let me learn more. So talk a little bit more about why that's important to you.
Well, part of it is that, as you and I have discussed, I was involved in the formation of the University City District back in 1997. And honestly, as a way of making progress, particularly in complicated urban environments, there's nothing more important than having a business improvement district. So when I learned about your work, which is why I reached out, it just felt to me that this is such an advantage for Temple, Temple Health, and as a new leader for me personally, to sort of get plugged in to the ecosystem that you've created. So that is sort of almost like partnership number one for me, because you've pitched, I imagine, a very broad tent of constituencies that you've been working with now for a number of years.
From City Hall to Butler, over 50,000 residents, 8 neighborhoods.
Right. So in a way, that makes my life a lot easier because I'm now part of your network, and you can introduce me to many of those individuals and organizations. And so that to me is such a huge running start that you've given someone like me. But in addition to that, I've been at Temple now about 2.5 months, and most of what I'm doing each and every day is going out, meeting with different organizations and asking the partnership question.
Yeah.
How do we work together? That's what Dr. Watlington and I were talking about last week. I was with Bob Bogle an hour ago talking about the partnership between Temple and the Tribune. We were both, by the way, founded in the same year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
1884.
I did not know that.
So we're both celebrating our 140th anniversaries together this year.
Nice.
And there are so many other organizations that I've been approaching and saying, what's your relationship with Temple, and how can we work together, and is there a win-win here?
Yeah.
And are there internships for our students? Are there research opportunities for our faculty? So I'm sort of doing a big inventory right now, and what I'm seeing is that there are so many possibilities, abundant possibilities. In some cases, these partnerships are established, but in many cases, they aren't.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I have a lot of opportunity to sort of grow and expand Temple's partnership footprint, and over time, sort of its impact and its influence.
I won't say that on camera. I'll tell you that story later. So what are your long-term goals for strengthening Temple's impact on community development and economic growth? After 5 years, let's say 5 years, what's a win-win that you can say, you know what, we really had a strong impact, and the work that we've done has really been successful?
And again, I'll caveat that because I'm so new, but a few things come to mind. The first is when people think about Temple in the future, they also think about Temple's located in a great, safe, vibrant neighborhood. And right now, the narrative among many people is that, where Temple is not a safe neighborhood. So how do we change that over time? Yeah. That's your essential work. That needs to be our essential work. I happen to believe that our campus is very safe, but many of the neighborhoods that we're adjacent to have challenges.
Yeah, that's right.
And Temple also needs to lean into those challenges, not just lament that, but to say, okay, what are we going to do to change that? So to me, so job number one is how do we change the public perception of sort of safety on and around our campus? And one of the ways we do this, and it comes back to the mission of North Broad Renaissance, is we need to develop. We need to attract more businesses, commercial, retail, residential to this area, and we need to create more density, more activity, more street life, because I think that, along with good policing, is the way to public safety.
Yeah.
That is literally the playbook we used in West Philadelphia for the last 25 years. And of course, this evolves. It takes a long time to do these things. So to me, job one is a combination of public safety and sort of public investment in the corridor.
Yeah.
Number two, which is dependent on number one to a large degree, is how do we begin to grow the enrollment back to where it once was? So in 2017, our high water mark was a little over 40,000 students. Today, it's a little over 30,000 students. Now, this fall, the class entering this fall was a very large class. So it's very promising in terms of our sort of turn towards some growth over time. But we're going to have to continue to repeat that over the next number of years. So I'm hoping that 30,000 is going to be 35,000 within a reasonable period of time.
Nice.
Because we're an institution that can handle more students than we can handle right now. And so I think we want to sort of do that. And also that's good for us financially. That gives us more of a margin and it allows to invest that margin in the third thing, which is academic excellence, access for students, support for our great faculty, and, programmatically, how do we take this amazing designation as a Research One university with over $300 million of sponsored research every year and lift that up to become one of the preeminent urban serving public universities in the country, which is really sort of our long-term goal.
Yeah.
So I think those three things to me are completely interconnected. And a fourth thing, and I'm sure Mike Young covered this far better than I could, is we also have this amazing health system connected to this university. And when you add all that, I mean, it's just, it really is a formula for great success.
Yeah. And these are conversations that we have all the time, right? So how do we connect the dots with those communities East and West, because our focus is just on North Broad. You're not that far off of North Broad, but as you mentioned, it's the communities that dive into in the neighborhoods East and West. How do we connect the dots and let those community members know that we're here to be a resource for them?
So Shalimar, what I've learned, again, from all the years of practice in West Philly and also in Lancaster, is that there are sort of two really important things. One is the relationship with the local public schools. I mean, institutions like ours have to really care about the public education being delivered in the neighborhoods around us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it is so determinative of the quality of life in those neighborhoods. If you have a strong local public school with strong leadership, and a great sort of network of students and parents who really care about the place, you have a really valuable asset. And then the question is, what can a university like Temple do to support those local schools? Number one. And number two, and we did this, I think, particularly well in Matchua with our Dornsife, I'm already forgetting the name of it, Dornsife Center for Neighborhood Partnerships. And that was an extension center where we found, in effect, a sort of, space between the community and the university where we could create opportunities for us to work together in true partnership around the things that the community expressed to us as their highest needs, legal services, a health clinic, opportunities for all sorts of creative work to be done together. We had something called the Writers' Room, which would publish a yearly anthology of the work of our neighbors, poetry and fiction and nonfiction, and a list of other things that happened in that extension center. But the most powerful example was a monthly community dinner where hundreds of people would come together, break bread, have conversation. There was no program. There was nothing more than fellowship. And so having a place where we could all do that together, I'm hoping that down the road there's an opportunity for that kind of extension work to occur, in some of in one of the neighborhoods close by to us, where we can sort of invite everyone together to get to know one another and to figure out how do we work together in true partnership. So schools and extension, to me, are the two key strategies.
That's one of the reasons why the project we're doing at 525, that I'm hoping that we can do that, is so important, because it creates a space, like you said, that community space that's very necessary. And if you know Broad and Spring Garden, you know that that's a huge education hub. Not only is it where the headquarters are for the School District of Philadelphia, but you have Ben Franklin High School, SLA, Parkway Center City, Masterman, FLC, all within blocks of each other. Across the street, Ben Franklin and SLA is right next door to each other, right? They're connected. But many of these students don't have the opportunity when they leave school to go to a community space. And I remember when we did the kind of community gathering at Ben Franklin, and we asked the students, and they said that's a great place where they can do homework sometimes. They can just hang out, a safe space for them to go somewhere after school, and it's right across the street. And so that's the type of projects that we have to create in here. Again, going back on that conversation of community and how are we supporting the students in that K through 12.
Right. And we should talk about how do we plug Temple into that.
Absolutely.
To the extent that we can be helpful in some of these things.
Absolutely. And so you've been here for about 60 days. What stood out?
75.
75. No one's counting though, right? What has stood out the most for you?
And I've now talked to a lot of people, people who are affiliated directly with Temple, but even people who, the prospective partners, for example, that I've reached out to, government officials, people who are, running significant businesses in the region. And what is really, it's very compelling and it's very palpable is the clarity of mission and purpose of this university. People may have all sorts of different opinions about Temple, but everyone is really sort of clear on why we exist, what we do, and honestly what our potential is. And to have that kind of unanimity on that, the very mission of the institution, to me is such a gift and such a competitive advantage that, again, there'll be different opinions about should Temple do this or Temple do that, but everyone understands what Temple is, what it stands for, and I also think what its possibilities are. And that really creates such a sort of platform for all sorts of other good things to happen there. And I think underneath that, and especially of course with my students, my faculty, my staff and alumni, is a real love for the place. That people love this institution. They love what it stands for. They love its history, and I think they love being there. And so it's great because you're in a place that people understand and people want to really commit to.
Yeah. And I'm really hoping that you can bring some type of connection to that love, right? Because as a Temple alum and working with the and on North Broad, it's like a love-hate relationship with the university, right? It's like, yes, that university has done amazing things. I swear by the School of Communications. That's where I graduated from. It literally prepared me. Like, I was ready to go into the workforce. I had no problems and I was ready. So it is one of the best programs. And, I talk strongly about Temple in that way. And then when you come to the community part, it's like, well, I also went to community college. So let's talk about, you try to separate yourself from Temple University. So how are you working to kind of shift that in a way so that there's the community aspect is also positive, as well as the educational aspect?
Well, first, I really believe in my heart and have spent so much of my professional life making sure that the institutions that I work with and work for understand that while the traditional mission of a university is sort of teaching, research, and service, there's another dimension, which is community engagement.
That's right.
That I think is so very fundamental to the mission of these institutions. And so, this to me is the sort of basis for what a great university is for the future. Because if all we do is serve ourselves and create knowledge for others, I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we also figure out a way of meaningfully leaning into the challenges and the opportunities facing our communities and do something to lift those communities and move them forward as we lift and move ourselves forward, then we've done really something special. And especially at a time in our country where, there are so many challenges, so many people being left behind, our role becomes, I think, in some ways much more important than it ever has. But it's got to have that community engagement piece as one of its cornerstones. And so, therefore, in terms of the institution that I'm leading now, we're going to double down on that kind of community engagement. And also, by the way, this is a big two-way street. Maybe hopefully the community will benefit from what we do, but I can tell you our students, faculty, administration are going to benefit just as much from our relationships with the community. I saw that time and time again at Drexel, where the richness of our interaction, particularly with our neighborhoods in Mantua and West Powelton and Powelton Village, just made us better people and made us a better university.
Yeah. And to your point, the ingredients are there, right? The people are there in the university. We have great partnerships with Temple alumni who partners with us every year on our Broad of Grain event. We have the Temple student chapter of the PRSSA kind of adopted us as their nonprofit. So there are people there that definitely want to be engaged in the community, and the ingredients are there for you to be successful in that area.
Right. And I think as we're discovering, the first thing it is when you approach me about this is for us just to say yes. And let's go and do this. It's not a big deal. Let's just go. Let's go and do it. And then I think the other thing, just to your question, results. People have to see.
That's right.
More than just a bunch of rhetoric about this. And so being able to identify specific things that really move things forward for the community and the university together is important. So I'm starting to think about what are the tangible things that we can, do. And there are, small down payments along the way to also big things happening. And so as you and I have discussed, this idea of a strong innovation corridor along North Broad Street is super important. And I think Temple can help seed significantly some of those activities and investments. And we absolutely have to do that.
I love it. So you spoke a little bit about the work that you've done at Drexel, and I shared with you that that was University City District was like my go-to. That and Center City District when I first started at North Broad, because you got it right, I think. And so we noted the good things that came out of it. What are some lessons learned that you said, you know what, this was something that maybe I can avoid moving forward, especially as I come into Temple?
I think that the biggest learning was from the development of the Penn Alexander School, which we opened in 2001 at 43rd and Locust Streets in West Philadelphia. And the University of Pennsylvania partnered with the school district to sort of create an opportunity for a new school to be built, an 800 student school to be built at that location on property that was owned by Penn. The school district actually funded the capital, and the university put in, I think it was about $1,000 a year per pupil for sort of enrichment of the curriculum and then the activities. And so, that opened up in 2001, has been an incredible success academically, but the way in which it changed the neighborhood was something that we never could have anticipated. We just didn't. If you talk to us back in 2001 that Penn Alexander is going to gentrify the neighborhood, I would have looked at you like you're crazy, because the neighborhood was so compromised back then. And everyone was desperate for a high quality local neighborhood K through 8 with a catchment area that could sort of provide a really great place for education. So we weren't thinking about the unintended consequences. All these years later, now we understand. So I think the thing I've learned is that even with the best of intentions, you also have to think about the downside risks of what a good thing may end up doing to create a situation where not everyone can have access. And so these are conversations I imagine we'll be having over the next number of years about, okay, if we do this, what are the implications of that? Mostly the unforeseen ones. And I think in the second school that I was involved in, which is the Powell Science Leadership Academy Middle School at 36th and Filbert Streets, we took a lot of steps to think about how does this not have any negative impact on the existing neighborhood. And I think that situation has worked out really well so far.
So good. And it goes back to your point of the value and importance of strong educational institutions, right? The communities want it. That's a key factor for whether families stay in Philly, right? Because if they don't have a good school to send their kids to, they leave. And so it just, that story speaks to the value and importance of a strong educational system. And so how do we still create that? Because it's necessary, but without the negative impacts, right? And it goes back to the narrative of gentrification. And, I've got asked this question a lot. What about gentrification? What about gentrification? And our position is, it's not that communities don't want quality investments. It's not that communities don't want good schools. It's not that they don't want good businesses and a good quality of life. They just don't want to be exploited and displaced in the process. So how do we create the negative impact of that?
No, they should share in all the things that we're trying to create. And and it has to be something that we think about from the very beginning with all these initiatives. And had we any inkling back in 2001 about the unintended consequences, I think, for example, we would have probably done an equally big set of investments around affordable housing. That would have been the obvious thing to do, to say, well, we're doing a school. What about affordable housing as sort of connected in the catchment area? We just didn't see it.
But it's a lesson learned.
It's a big lesson learned.
The last question I have is, what does hashtag Think Broad mean to you?
I want that to be the kind of watchword for, think broad when you're thinking big about the future of all of Philadelphia. Think broad, because this is a place that you're going to want to invest in and do business and sort of have a place. And it's a very exciting thing to contemplate, that we are already a place of opportunity. How do we become a place of greater opportunity and a destination, so that when people want to do big things, they think broad?
Thank you so much. Welcome to North Philly.
Thanks, Alma. Great to see you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you.